My name's Andre Lewis, part of the teaching team. I love giving pastors here a break when they just need some downtime. And when I'm not helping that area in my life, I'm working with at-risk youth through Spokane Youth for Christ as the area director. All right, I'm going to ask you to do something. Oh, this is going to be hard for some of you, but I'm going to do it. There's a guy right here. I can't look at this guy. He's got his notebook out and his pen. And I'm going to encourage you not to take notes during my sermon, okay? And all the good job. All the GU kids, all the GU students down at the other campus were like, yes, no notes. Here's why. Preaching is not like hearing a lecture. Lecture is like, here's information. Write down the information. It's not what preaching is. My job as a preacher this morning is to make an impression upon your heart, okay? And if you're taking notes and you're worried about the exact quote and who was that author again and who did he quote, you might miss something. You just might. You might miss something of the impact of the Spirit of God. A sermon is you meeting with the living Christ. It's you seeing his glory so that you can feel it and be changed by it forever. And so my goal today is to make an impression on you before I leave. So let's try that, okay? Question for you. What is Spokane's greatest need? Beautiful city, Spokane. What's Spokane's greatest need? You might think better housing for the poor, better marriages, bigger city budgets, ending poverty, ending potholes, ending corruption. The mayor's probably here this morning, right? Sorry, mayor. Or maybe even racial reconciliation. That's what our city needs. I'm here to tell you those are not Spokane's greatest needs. Not even close. Stay with me. What's your greatest need? You might be thinking, man, my marriage needs some help. Parenting? I could use some help there. Maybe more financial stability, less stress, a better job, more friends, better health, an internship. It's not what you need the most. What is the church's greatest need? Our church and every church in Spokane. It's not more volunteers. Seems like that would be logical, but it's not. It's not better worship. Feel bad saying that. Worship is awesome here. It's not a bigger annual budget. All those things are merely results of something. Our city's greatest need, your greatest need, my greatest need, our church's greatest need is for the gospel to first change our hearts and then change our city for God. Our most urgent need is an awakening to the beauty of the gospel, and it starts there, and it ends there, actually, for our city and for us and our church. Now, how can I prove that? Aren't those all good things? Yeah, those are awesome things. All those successes, though, are merely a result of something more important. And I'm taking my cues from a guy named Jesus, okay? Because he sent out 72 people like you and I into the city, and he said, go do work. It's going to be good work. It's dangerous. It's exciting. And they were excited with the results. They were pumped. They come back, and this is the report they give to Jesus. Matthew 10. The 72 returned with joy, saying, Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name. And he said to them, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Behold, I have given you authority to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing will hurt you. Now, what I love about Jesus is he doesn't throw water on their ministry success flames, right? In fact, he rejoices with them. He joins their chorus of celebration. He says, that's great that all these things are subject to you. Guess what? Guess what I did? I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. We kicked that punk out of heaven. Boop. You should have seen him. Down he went. So he's like with them. He's like, yeah, this is exciting stuff. I'm right there with you. He doesn't condemn them. He does say, however, that their focus is off. He says our focus is off. See, Jesus cuts right to their hearts and my heart and your heart in verse 20, where he says this, nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. That's what you're to rejoice in. You see, Jesus knows that life toggles back and forth between success and failure. These 72 had failure and they had successes. And our life has success and failure. Our culture says that if things are hard and you fail, it's because you don't work hard enough and you're not smart enough and you didn't go to the right school and you didn't have the right connections, and it kills you. It can crush you. Or society says, if you crush it, if you're killing it, well, you've probably earned it because you're smarter than most people and you're more talented and you work harder than most people. And you know what? You've earned it and you're going to be happy. Jesus will have none of this. His primary emphasis and concern for the 72 during the ups and downs of life and ministry is to remember that we are sheep in need of a shepherd, and that the gospel message is for us. Before we ever attempt to do anything great for the Father, is to remember this most fundamental thing, that our names are written in heaven. He says, keep on rejoicing. Rejoice that your names are written in heaven. If you study the Greek verb there, it's ongoing and with continuation. It's not something you just do once. He says this is to be a spiritual discipline. Every day you're to wake up and rejoice that your names are written in heaven. So, how do we have our hearts enlarged by the gospel message? So, is there one thing we can study? Is there one word? Well, there is, because I have it in my notes, and here it is. Inheritance. I want to look at the word inheritance, because I believe if we understand it, it will enlarge in your heart to the gospel, to the beauty of the love of Jesus. Colossians 1, best passage, in my opinion, on who Jesus Christ is. The Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Now we're going to note 4 things about this Jesus, and you're not going to take any notes on these 4 things. Here we go. The first is a thesis statement. Jesus is the firstborn of all creation. This means he's first in rank, honor, power. He is supreme in all of creation. In other words, nothing can compare to him. He has no equals. Kent Hughes says this, firstborn, the word firstborn, was code for the coming Messiah, as in Psalm 89:27. And I will make him the firstborn, the highest of the kings of the earth. So Paul's saying, Jesus is the highest of the kings of the earth because he's the firstborn of creation. And then the apostle proves how this is true. He says, for in him and through him, all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible, invisible, thrones, powers, rulers, authorities. So Paul is saying everything that's ever been created was created by Jesus. Now this won't do justice because it says he created all things visible and invisible. I can't show you pictures of invisible subject matter, but I'm going to try with some visible representations of things that Jesus created. As the firstborn, it means he created every tree in the Rocky Mountains, every waterfall in the entire world, every crashing wave, every mountain, every star, universe, and galaxy, seen, unseen, and not yet discovered. He is responsible for the creation of every single human being that was ever conceived. Every freckle on your face. He created every plant cell, every color, every number, and every city, and he did it out of nothing. Powerful. This teaches us that Jesus, at his core, is the most creative and powerful genius, artist that the world has ever seen. And this world, friends, is only the first sketch. The world to come will be amazing. This teaches us that Jesus has no equal. He has no peers. He has no competition. He even has exhibits that we aren't able to see, invisible canvases. So it teaches us that Jesus is the creator of all things. But not only is he the creator of all things were created for him, is what we're told. Everything created must have a Jesus-directive motive, a Jesus-directed end goal, a Jesus-honoring and Jesus-glorifying perspective and agenda. Everything must. This speaks to the intrinsic beauty and value and power and dignity of who Jesus Christ is. If all things were created for him, he must be amazing. And this became very clear to me last summer at Glacier National Park. With my daughter, about to go off to the UW. I'm falling apart inside. No, don't leave me. And we drove up the Going to the Sun highway. Anybody ever do that? Terrifying. Leave your Escalade at home if you're going up there. It's too big. Get a little car. So we went up there and we're like, we're going to go on a hike and we're going to go to this overlook at an alpine lake. And we're hiking and I look to my right and I see this. Bam! This massive mountain. Now, pastors were weird. Pastor dads are even weirder. And I instantly quote Colossians 1 to my daughter and begin to kind of do a little sermon with her. She's used to it. And I said, everything is created by Jesus, and everything that Jesus created is actually for him, sweetie. That mountain is for him. Wow, what kind of person gets a present like that? That's amazing. This Jesus that we serve has to be amazing if those are the gifts that he gets. It does speak to his beauty. There's nothing as beautiful and powerful and worthy of a gift than Jesus because he's glorious. So he created all things, and all things were created for him, but we're also told that he holds all things together. So Jesus is not the artist, the creator. He's not the benefactor only. It's not just for him, but it's held together by him. He's the curator of all things. Presently, right now, we don't really think about this, right? We just go our way. We drive our cars. The earth spins. The sun does something. I don't know. The stars come out. He's holding all of that together. As I talk to you right now, he's holding the sound waves that are coming off my vocal cords and being transformed into energy with molecules that are bouncing in the inner membrane of your ear. And he's flipping the image of me in your eye so that your brain can see me right side up. And he's holding all those things together. And if you stop for 1 second, everything would come crashing down. He holds your eyes where they're at. Your heart, lungs, capillaries, every star, molecule, every planet, every molecule of energy. If you'll let him, he'll hold together your marriage and your kids and your relationships and your finances. Why is this important? I thought we were going to talk about inheritance. That's what you said. You've been talking an awful lot. Well, I'm trying to build a case here, people. I'm trying to be logical with this. And here's why this passage is important. God's people were enslaved for 400 years in Egypt, and God delivers them. And he says, I'm going to take you to the promised land. And it took them 40 years to get there, right? Shouldn't have taken them 40 years, but it did. And they're right on the doorstep of the promised land. And there's 12 tribes, and they're excited because they're supposed to receive something. They're supposed to get something wonderful in the promised land. There's one tribe, the Levites. They were the priests of Israel. I am preaching right now to priests. At least that's how God views you. Revelation 1:6 says, to him who loves us and has freed us from our sins by his blood and has made us a kingdom, priests to his God and Father, to him be glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. And 1 Peter 2:9 says this, you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. So you are priests. Are you with me? You're Levites right now. As they are on the cusp of entering the promised land, the 11 tribes receive something. They receive a land. You can read about it. You get this, you get this, you get this. But the priests, the Levites, they receive nothing. No land, that is. They got something better, though. Joshua 13:33 puts it this way. But Moses had given no land to the tribe of Levi, for as he had explained to them, the Lord God was their inheritance. He was all they needed. He would take care of them in other ways. Point number 1. You want your heart enlarged by the gospel? Recognize that you inherit Jesus. The Jesus that I just described from Colossians 1 is yours. You don't inherit a thing, you inherit a king. And you don't inherit just a king, you inherit the King of Kings. And this is not a spiritual metaphor. You inherit Jesus, the highest of the kings of the earth. Let me ask you a couple questions. Would you rather have land instead of Jesus? More land than Jesus? More power, more respect, more influence, more ministry acclaim if you're in ministry? More people to like you? Do you want more toys than Jesus? They're just carnival toys, by the way. Do you worry about what people think of you? Do you get angry about your lack of possessions? What about professional acclaim? Okay, this is for me. As I'm writing this, I'm like, I hate being a preacher because this is about me. Is this about you? Do you ever feel that way? If so, if you're like me, we've forgotten our inheritance. The question is this Jesus as an inheritance good enough for you? Is it big enough? Is it strong enough? Is it beautiful enough? Does it provide enough resources and wisdom for you? Colossians 1 argues yes, it does. So that's the first way our hearts are enlarged by the message of the gospel. We inherit Jesus. But secondly, this is crazy. It's only going to get crazier as we talk here. The Father inherits you through adoption. Romans 8 says this, for those who are led by the Spirit of God are the children of God. The Spirit you receive does not make you slaves so that you live in fear again. That's that song we sang about. No longer slaves to fear. The Spirit you received brought about your adoption to sonship. And by him we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit himself testifies with our spirit that we are God's children. Okay. Do you know that your salvation is less about a feeling than it is about a position? Salvation isn't a feeling. It is a position. You have inherited a position as sons and daughters of the Father through adoption. The main thing you need to know, remember, is that you are a child of Jesus. It's the most fundamental thing that you need to always remember. You must not forget who you are. You must not have spiritual amnesia. When criticism comes, when failure comes, and when you have massive success, you must not forget that you are a child of God. Paul goes on to describe that position. It's kind of interesting. He uses an Aramaic word to describe that position and relationship with the Father. He uses the word Abba. Again, he's trying to show how special this is. Now, this is interesting. I think it's interesting. I hope you think it's interesting too. The New Testament is written in Koine Greek. Old Testament Hebrew, New Testament Koine Greek. There is a word in Koine Greek for father. It's pater. Why doesn't Paul use it? Why would you shift gears and switch up the languages? Why use the Aramaic? As some have noted, it's because when you pronounce the Aramaic word Abba, you don't need to have teeth. Think about that for a minute while I get some water. You don't need teeth. Another question for you. What kind of people don't have teeth? Yeah, babies, and then someone, last two services, and the elderly. We're going to stay with the babies for now. Yeah, little kids don't have teeth, right? They don't. Every culture has little kids who name grandmas and grandpas. They're all the same. They all sound the same. My daughter, the kiddo we went on the hike with, she was the first grandchild on my side of the family, which means she got to name my parents, right? That's how it works. So she named them Papa and Nunu. Now, Nunu is a vacuum cleaner from the Teletubbies TV show. It's this freaky thing with like a trunk, and it sucks up pudding or porridge or whatever that stuff is. So I got Papa and Nunu. Tyler, my nephew, on my wife's side of the family, he's the firstborn grandchild. He got to name everybody. So my wife's parents are Ima and Ipa. And I don't know what yours is, but it's something like that. It's Pop-Pop, Bammy, Nunu, Papa, Ipa. I don't know what it is. But these kids have this beautiful, innocent belief that says, if I reach out to that Gammy or my Ipa, they will love me perfectly no matter what. They're never going to let me down because they're big and they're so strong. And they have disposable income, and they'll buy me things. And they're like supernatural. Like grandparents are like supernatural in little kids' eyes. It's because the child hasn't lived long enough. I'm not trying to be a downer here. The child hasn't lived long enough for cynicism and reality to sink in that no matter how much you love Gammy, Ima, Ipa, Papa, or Nunu, at some point they're going to let you down. They just will. As one pastor said, you have to reach past these earthly figures, reach past them to God the Father. That's what Paul's encouraging us to do. Do you know Jesus even calls his father Abba as a way to reinforce the fact that you can trust this dad, you can trust this father, that God the Father is the one that you really need, and you have him, and he approves of you. But this father, this Abba, gives you so much more. Earthly fathers, earthly Abbas, they give you big ice cream cones and a football, a doll, a donut the size of your face. I saw it at Super One the other day, massive donut. But Abba, the real father, he gives you so much more. That's what you need to remember. The Father loves you, that he's good, and that he won't let you down ever. And that's freedom. Here's the problem. There are times in our life where we forget this truth. And that passage in Romans says that, here's the good news, that at times the Spirit will testify with you that you are a child of God. And that's happened to me. I planted a church in Redmond after seminary, 2004, 0 people in the church, super techie, super driven Microsoft culture, had plenty of money to buy their way out of problems. I thought, I'll just preach the gospel and people will just be like, that's the greatest thing I've ever heard. And that is not what happened at all. And I was not doing well. I was bummed out, probably depressed. So I thought to myself, I got to change this up. I need somebody to speak life into me. I'm tired of speaking life into people. I need help. And I decided I would get a spiritual director. Sounds kind of funky, right? A spiritual director. And I'm ordained in the Presbyterian church, and I thought to myself, I want the most unpresbyterian person I can find. I don't want to talk about the Bible. I don't want to talk about translations. I don't want to study a map. I don't want to study Koine Greek. I just want to hang with somebody. And I found the unpresbyterian person. I found Rita. Rita was in her late 50s, strong woman who rode a Harley Davidson. And I was like, Rita's the one for me. I'm just going to tell my wife that I'm going to hop on the back of the Harley and hug Rita and off, just let's go. I don't want to talk about anything. So I'm meeting with Rita at the Redmond Town Center. I'm sitting at this outdoor dining area. I got sunglasses on. It was one of the few sunny days over in Seattle. And she says, "How are you doing? Andre, how are you doing?" And I kind of just lied to her. Pastors lie. I don't know if you know that. Oh, it's going great. The church is awesome. The music's sweet, and attendance is pretty good. And yeah, baptized some kids and like parents, and yeah, and blah, right? And she she just like looked right through me and looked right into my soul. And she said, "No, I asked, how are you doing?" And before I could answer, strong Rita grabs my hands tightly and says, "I want to tell you something. Andre, you are a child of God, the Most High, with whom he is well pleased. You are his beloved son." Whoa. I mean, I just started bawling. I'm just weeping. I mean, the table is just soaked with my tears. I'm like, I needed to hear that. And you know what? So do you. So let me be Rita without a Harley. I've always wanted a Harley, but I'm never going to get one. My dog's named Harley. True story. It's been a long day. Where was I? I'm going to be Rita for you, okay? Because you need the Spirit to testify that you're a child of God. I'm not pretending to be the Spirit of God, okay? I'm just saying, to the ladies out here, I want to tell you that you are a daughter of the Most High. You are a daughter of the King, and he is madly in love with you. And he will never leave you nor forsake you, and he will give you your heart's desire. He'll never leave you. And men, I'm here to tell you right now that you are sons of God. You are a son of the King of Kings. And when he looks at you, he smiles and he is pleased with his beloved son. And there's nothing you can do ever for him to turn his back upon you. That's how much he loves you. The Spirit testifies that we are children of God. We inherit Jesus. The Father inherits us. And we inherit a glorious future. And that's our last point. That text goes on to say, now if we are children, then we are heirs, heirs of God, and co-heirs with Christ. The Apostle Paul is building a case. He's a smart guy. He says, if we call him Abba, then that means he's our father. If he's our father, then that means we are kids, children. And if we're children, we're heirs. And if we're heirs, we're co-heirs with Christ. Think about that for a minute. Remember Colossians 1 passage? That Jesus, that Christ, you're co-heirs with him. Co meaning equal or to the same degree. Let that sink in for a minute. Charles Spurgeon wrote a sermon called The Joint Heirs in Their Divine Portion, July 28, 1861. I read that sermon and here are some thoughts from it. Wills, inheritances, they can be disappointing, can't they? Heard a story about a lady who gave $12 million of her estate to her dog. That caused the problem. There were some fights. What if you find out there's nothing left in the will to distribute? Well, if we're co-heirs, if we get nothing, Christ gets nothing. But Colossians 1 says all things are for him. And what if what is found in the estate is worthless and a bunch of junk? Well, then Jesus gets junk. My friends, Jesus doesn't make junk. And he never junks what he's made. What if there's a flaw in the will? Then there's a flaw in Jesus, and there is no flaw in him. He is the Son of God, and you are a child of God. The Father would never give his Son an inferior gift. And Jesus will never give you an inferior gift because you are his children. You have no right for the gift. I have no right to the gift. But Jesus does, and out of his grace, he grants it to you. Kent Hughes, I've quoted him once already. He said, The divine hand that wrote our names in the book of life above puts us in his will. Think of the honor that is granted to us by being named in his will. To have anything to do with a great man or a woman is a mark of honor. Imagine, tomorrow, you go to the mailbox, certified letter from some lawyer you've never heard of, and he says, you need to be at 421 West Riverside Avenue, that's the Polson building, on Washington and Riverside, and you need to go to the third floor, exit the elevator to conference room 303, because I'm going to read a will there, and everybody that's present, along with you, will get the same thing. And you're like, I don't know who this is, but I'm going to go. So you park in front of the Polson building, you take the elevators up to the third floor, exit left, conference room 303, and you open up the door. And these are the people that are seated there. Bill Gates is there, sitting right there. And you sit down next to him. Jeff Bezos is over there. Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook is at the end, if he's not being sued. Oh, Bono's there. Oh, and you're like, I love your music. How do you guys keep rocking? He's getting old. Oprah's there. You're going to get one, you're going to get one, you're going to get one, right? Oh, and Russell Wilson's there. And you're all sitting around this table. And you're looking at each other. And you're freaking out. You're like, I'm going to get something good. You would, wouldn't you? Isn't that what you would expect? Imagine if you open up that door and none of those people are there. But the following are. There's a guy named the Deliverer. And he's right there. There's a guy named the Good Shepherd, and he's over there. The great high priest, he's over there. The head of the church, he's sitting over there. The Alpha and Omega back there. The bread of life, the Messiah, the Prince of Peace, the Redeemer, the Son of the Highest. There's the true light. There's the way, the truth, and the life. There's the true vine. There's the King of Kings. There's the Lamb of God. There's the Messiah. There's the Lord God Almighty. And you sit down in that room. What will you get? What will you inherit? Well, what inheritance would be fitting for someone with those names? In a word, that inheritance would be otherworldly. In a word, glorious. And thus it will be for you. Do you know your future is the stuff of movies? Disney on steroids, Universal Studios, fairy tales. You inherit a glorious and amazing future. Remember, this world is only the first sketch. The world to come and what you inherit will be amazing. J.R.R. Tolkien, pretty good writer, right? He wrote a book called On Fairy Stories. And he says that fairy stories continue to be popular because people get outside of time, escape death, commune with non-human beings, find perfect love from which they are never departed, and triumph over evil. Why are they so popular? Because that is what your future is and what your heart's desire is. That is your inheritance. You will never die. You will never sin. God will wipe away every tear from your eye. You will never be bound by time. You will have a love that will never depart. You will live in perfect harmony with your fellow saints. The streets will be paved with gold. The new Jerusalem will be established, and the city of God will never see darkness. The river of life will refresh you always. You will never have shame or want or pain, and you will have a perfected body and experience all the perfected glories of creation. And together you will perfectly magnify the King. Your future is a glorious inheritance. It is the stuff of movies. It is the stuff of fairy tales. And you will one day inherit that. But there's one catch. There's a condition. In order to share in that glory as co-heirs with Christ, it will happen if indeed we share in his sufferings. That's hard, right? I'm here to tell you that we all suffer. Every single one of us. And we must not want to shoo that away too quickly. We will be tempted to love this world more than the world to come if we live a life that is free of suffering. We'll be like the prodigal son who says, Dad, I want my inheritance now. Give it to me now. But there's no other way for the inheritance to come unless we bear with our sufferings and look to Jesus. They will come. But when they do, my encouragement to you is to keep that glorious inheritance in front of you. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Jesus kept his inheritance set before him while he suffered. Hebrews 12 says this, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. See, he's suffering. Jesus is suffering. But there was a joy set before him, which allowed him to continue, which allowed him to have the restraint to not say, I'm calling my boys from heaven down, and we're done with this game. You're not going to kill me. How did he resist that temptation? What was the joy set before him? Friends, it was you. You were the joy set before Jesus. He had you in mind as people spit on him and hit him and whipped him. As he carried a cross that tore across his back that was already torn open, you were that joy. He had you in mind. You are his prized possession. He inherits you. And that changes everything when you suffer. You join Jesus in suffering by putting your inheritance before him. Man, how do you change your city? We're back to that original slide. How do we do it? Well, we love Jesus more, and we let his love make our hearts bigger, and we accept the fact that we are sons and daughters of the Most High, that we inherit Jesus, the Father inherits us, and the glorious future is ours. And when you have a heart like that, you'll change your city. I promise you, you will. You'll be more free with your time and your finances. Your marriage will be better. Your parenting will be better. Racism can end. Budgets can grow. And maybe even we'll fix the potholes as one giant church. I don't know how. But with enlarged hearts by the gospel, man, it'll change your city. And that's what you need. It's pretty simple, isn't it? It's simple. The gospel's for you. As sons and daughters of the Most High, let's stand and declare our freedom. Well, sons and daughters of the Most High, man, you have a great inheritance coming your way. Maybe some suffering in the midst of that, but nonetheless, your position is secure as his kids. And that's what we need to know. So the Father pronounces to you, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and grant you peace. Amen. Have a great week. Hey, one last thing. There are people up here that will pray for you. If you got some fear in your life, if you got some stuff going on in your life like I've been wrestling with, they want to be here for you, pray for you, and listen for you. So come on up. Have a great week. We'll see you at the Fox next week for Easter.